Hey, and welcome to this special podcast takeover from Amsterdam Dance Event 2022, where I was really lucky to be on the ground capturing insights with several industry leaders from label owners, artists, investors, founders, promoters, journalists, and many, many more. ADE is the largest dance music gathering in the world for professionals and fans alike, and it takes place over 5 days with 600 speakers, 2,500 artists, 1,000 events, and 450,000 visitors from around the globe. And after 3 really hard years for our industry, it was honestly incredible to connect again with stakeholders in the music ecosystem and discuss urgent topics such as sustainability for live events, mental health for artists and professionals, social change, and strategies for the future of electronic music. The dates have been announced for ADE 2023, and I already can't wait for next year. So without further ado, let's dive into today's conversation with Rishi Patel and John Acquaviva, who run Plus 8 Equity alongside Richie Horton. Plus 8 Equity is an early-stage VC investing in startups at the intersection of entertainment and technology with companies in their portfolio such as Lander and Endel. Both Rishi and John have had fascinating backgrounds, with Rishi coming from Wall Street and Silicon Valley, while John being very well known in the industry not only for his artistry, but for founding Beatport and Final Scratch, which has made significant contributions to how DJs perform today in the transition from analog to digital, and for founding one of the most influential techno labels, Plus 8 Records, with Richie in 1989, amongst, of course, many, many other things. So guys, welcome to the Mission Makers podcast. It's an absolute honour to have you both on the show, and it is the first official day of ADE 2022. And you guys are actually my first interview, so I'd love to know, well, first, how are you guys? And secondly, what are your goals going into this year's conference?
Happy to start with that. After a 2-year hiatus coming out of the pandemic, I think first and foremost, it's about reconnection with the community. To be frank, there's some things that just can't happen over a Zoom call and need to be done in person, especially when you're working in an industry that is so community-oriented. So it's been absolutely terrific to get back into Holland, hit the ground running, and meet so many familiar faces around. We approach ADE historically for the last several years with a lot of planning. We're very thoughtful about it. We organize all of our meetings by and large ahead of time. And so a lot of it's going to be oriented around connection into the artist community, and there's a tech community, the investor community, and just trying to explore ideas as we're planning for the duration of the year into 2023.
Yeah, just to add a tiny bit, John here. We do hit the ground running, and since we really believe in the ecosystem of the music business, it's important we work it kind of privately and publicly. So this year we're participating, Rishi talking about, in big business, big money in investing, and this year I'm judging the startups once again. So it's a nice balance here of both art and business, and I think that's important to bring it all together face to face, and that's been missing the last couple of years as well.
100%. And so what are some of the key messages that you want to share this year at ADE from some of your panels and throughout the weeks?
It's an unusual time, to be frank. It's an unusual time for music, it's an unusual time for entertainment, and it's an unusual time for business generally, especially as it relates to the economy and the financing markets. As John alluded to, I'm speaking tomorrow on a panel which is really sort of a panel that is dedicated towards understanding the music startup ecosystem and how capital raising happens. That's an area that we've been focused on with Plus 8 Equity over the last almost 10 years. Frankly, it's the first time we've seen in almost a decade where there's been a significant downturn from an economy perspective, financing windows shutting, and the startup community really trying to figure out how to make ends meet and thrive in this very, very unusual, capital markets ecosystem. And that's against a backdrop of, almost a collapsing crypto markets, a lot of hype coming from Web3 that may or may not have come to fruition on the timeline people were expecting. So it's an interesting time. I think one of the key themes is a significant reality check for a lot of startups. And trying to see, okay, where am I today? What's realistic? And what sort of key milestones do I need to hit for me to actually build a real thriving business?
Yeah, really. We've always had from day one, starting with me, coming together with Rich Houghton in the '90s, an eye and a foot towards the future, and one based on the present. So more than ever, I think in the greater economic scheme of global things, I think viability is really important. So when I see a startup, I think everyone should dream, but more than ever, it needs to be viable, because there's just not endless, money pits to, some companies should not be endless money pits for investors. And really a thriving ecosystem means that maybe some companies should just think small and then big. Be viable. Can you pay 2, 3, 4 salaries and be part of that cog in the ecosystem? So, I think we will have a great future. We have a great future ahead of us. But if we are a little bit more pragmatic given these times, but also in the sense that, how do we all make a living and be part of this wonderful thing, the music business?
And so how much of it is actually about viability versus the team? Because, of course, viability is, I think, absolutely essential and critical. But how much of it as well, when you're judging what to invest in, is about the team?
Well, it always starts with people. And, people can bring, you need someone dynamic to bring a thing to life, an idea to life. So often, there's different levels of investment, right, too. So an angel investor can buy the dream. So great people sell the dream. We kind of, want a little bit more. And we part of our work is also mentoring. We whether we judge or, we mentor at Techstars. We work for all the notable events. Rishi's over at Tektronix later this month. So we want to, not temper that dream, but rather, unlock that dream in a more pragmatic, viable way. Let's be smart about how we, use the investment, how we get to a proof of concept, a most valuable player. And some people need a bit of that focus. And I think the job of a good investor is also unlocking that in a good way.
The underpinning, as I think about startups and what's important and which leads to what we look for is, I think of from a sort of construct perspective, people, ideas, capital, and network, which sort of goes hand in hand with people. And I say this routinely, whether it be speaking on a public forum or in one-on-one meetings. I'd rather take a first-class team with a second-rate idea than a second-rate idea than a first-class team. A team is everything. And when you're working and living and breathing the startup world, it's all about adaptability. And if there's one thing I know for a fact, nothing goes to plan. So what you plan and what your vision is for the company at day one is not what it's going to be at day 20, day 30, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. And having the understanding that that's going to be the case and this is the natural evolution and being able to adapt to the marketplace and changes in the marketplace is absolutely critical. And that really stems from the team.
And so talking about evolution, what are some of the investment principles that guide your portfolio? Obviously, teams is one of them, but what would be some of the other things that stand out to you?
Team is definitely one of them and paramount. In addition to that is understanding the market and attacking a market opportunity that's compelling. Not going into a crowded field, I think, is an area that is very, very important to us. If you look at historically our investment portfolio, whether it be Splice, Lander, Endel, Versus Game, all of these guys were doing something that basically no one else in the market was doing at that time. So they were first to market almost in every regard, whether it be the business model, whether it be the opportunity that they were attacking. And we saw it through and through over the last, call it 9 years that we've been investing, that there's many, many crowded fields that sometimes pander to the times that they're in, right? Whether it be something that's crypto related, during the pandemic, live stream companies were a dime a dozen. We don't even want to go there because these are completely saturated market opportunities. So understanding, where you can carve out your niche and do it in a way that's different and truly be differentiated from the market is something that's absolutely critical for us.
Yeah. So just to add, it starts with great people. If we find first-class people, sometimes you see a first-class person get into a crowded field or with a second-class idea, and that's certainly worth consideration. when it comes to investment, but we need to be disciplined. Some funds are so large that they buy umpteen lottery tickets. So it's got to tick off all the boxes for us. So, we can work with someone, but someone who's really brilliant in a crowded field, that becomes more of a challenge, right? So it's always nice when you can tick off all the boxes, like first mover, brilliant people, and then like, wow, we can all do some magic together. And that's sort of the history of what we've done. We found some magical companies at +8 and before at +8, having done, Beatport and Tractor Scratch. So, those are that perfect storm. But we're always looking for it, and then we're always kind of speaking to that. And, again, for the ecosystem, some people are doing a good job. Like there's a lot of ticketing companies, and there's a lot of people doing it well. We haven't jumped into that because it's just like a crowded field. We don't want to battle with other people when we're trying to find something a bit more unique and create that value with an exceptional team.
John, you're a legendary DJ, investor, entrepreneur, and as you alluded to, perhaps most famously being on the founding team of Beatport, and you've done so much more since then. So what's your advice to fellow artists who are also similarly passionate about entrepreneurship, but they're also really, really serious about their artistry and, also then wear many hats?
Well, it's tough. Sometimes I make the joke, it's like Schrodinger's cat. You have to exist in two states of consciousness. When I speak to people, both privately and publicly, it's the artist loves to stay up all night, as I do. I don't sleep for many reasons, but you got to wake up and answer the call. So the thing is, as an artist, when you finally start to be creative and you have that opportunity, don't let your eyes glaze over when you have to read that contract. You have to do a few of those, and eventually, when you make money, pay a lawyer. Just embrace the two sides that that is required, as opposed to falling into a stereotype. Stereotype is a trap. Oh, the artist, can't do numbers or can't read a contract. Well, I just refuse to accept that I, as the artist side of me, should just be a flake. So, just thinking out of that box, or rather not accepting the stereotypes that an artist should be carefree. You should be carefree, but you can also read a contract and sign it, and eventually, as you do it more, you hire people. Success gets money, and then you can start specializing. Same with entrepreneurs. An idea person may hate cleaning the toilet, but there's that kind of metaphor that, in a small business, sometimes you got to clean the toilets or do the dirty work, right? And that's the same thing. Well, I'm an idea person. I'm a CEO. I don't do I don't do deliveries. When we owned a vinyl plant, if someone was sick, I'd go and box records because, shipping records was really important in the 90s. So someone had to do it, and sometimes it was me and Richie Houghton boxing the records. So, don't say no, just do what you have to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And running a business myself, I think it's really important to understand all areas of your business and try to do those things and build those things first, because then when you're in that beautiful position of hiring a team, you also know which supplier is taking you for a ride, and also you become like a dream to work with because you know the foundations, and those experts can then 10x your vision. Hey, I hope you're enjoying today's show, and of course, if you are, a little review or share with your friends would be much appreciated. But I just want to take a quick pause to share some interesting news that Mission Makers has unexpectedly grown into becoming a boutique podcast agency. And for the last year and a half, we've secretly been producing content for some high-impact brands, from tech unicorns in Silicon Valley to disruptive companies at Davos. So if you're thinking of starting your own show and you're looking for some help, then send us a message, because we would absolutely love to bring your story to life and help you amplify your content while really connecting on a much deeper level with your audiences. Now, let's get back to the show.
Absolutely. And it goes also, a CEO is an artist, someone with a vision, whether it's me making a record or me making a business. You're an artist. Now, a lot of times with a real vision-oriented, a great visionary, bringing something to life is amazing. Again, be it an album or a company. But it falls for a creative CEO. A CEO who's an artist to bring something to life hates being a manager. I've seen many great idea people hate managing a company. So one of my mantras, I was the same. I hated managing, but I had to do it. So I'm like, you know what, man, one day I need to manage the managers. But I did that job. So we tell people as CEO, learn your job, because you're wearing two hats as an investor and as a manager. One day, you're going to manage the manager, and you'll have defined that job. So if you define that job well, whether you like it or not, you'll be a great manager of the manager as a shareholder. So it goes hand in hand when you start to think that way. And again, that's important for our ecosystem of really small businesses. Look, there's a few major players, but there's thousands of people here in Amsterdam because we're all small business people at the end of the day. So you got to cover both sides of it. And that's I think a pretty solid recipe for viability, if not success.
Yeah, I think what we're doing is really, really important. And the foundation of what we laid out when we launched our fund, 8-9 years ago was really about bringing our community of electronic dance music into the bigger world, right? I don't come from the music world historically, but my experience on Wall Street really gave us a leg up in sort of creating a path forward to bring, what other people would deem as being a very niche community into the bigger realm, right? Why is it that our community uses the software and tools for music creation or distribution or anything else in the entertainment industry, but we don't take a invested ownership in those very products that we're evangelizing? That never made sense to me. So for us, it was really a fund that was by artists for artists and having a voice, a claim to some assets, core assets within the tech space that they can hang their hat on and say, you know what, not only do I use this product, but I own a piece of it. And that stems from some of the stuff that John was doing with Beatport. So I think our role is very, very critical as we think about the next evolution of how artists get involved into the technology community.
Absolutely. And so 2,500 pitches, 13 investments into your portfolio. How soon into reading a deck do you know it's a no? And do you think there are any parallels in the speed of decision making when you listen to promos, for example?
Well, pretty quick. And so we speak a lot to this, especially publicly when we're mentoring. We know traveling to Amsterdam, Barcelona or London or Berlin or LA and so on, everyone's like, I've got this idea. Let me just pick on ticketing, for example, or rather ticketing is flush with startups, and they tend to be regional. And it was like, well, first of all, our eyes glaze over when someone's like, no one's ever thought of this. I've got the, you think again, and they don't know their creative or their competitive space. So our eyes glaze over a bit because, like, man, you're in a crowded field. You don't even know your field, but we know their field better than they do. So we're like, well, let's at least hear them out and see how talented they are. Because there's a lot of talented people who also just want to get into the music business. So, and they pick something that's kind of obvious and go, well, I'm a smart person and I'm going to make this better. And that's a great approach. So on one hand, a lot of the business plans we look at are people who are like, I want to make this a better place, and they choose something a little obvious. But we track those people. We mentor those people because those people, if they can, again, be viable, I keep using the similar word, or not, they're going to end up, if they have a passion in music, being a small cog or stay and end up in a better company. So, and that's happened to us a lot. Some people that we turned down, we've run into again. And we see that at conferences. If you keep coming to conferences, you'll keep running into people. And what are you up to now? Well, I started a new company, and and everyone takes that second wind or that I'm going to stay in the music business. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make a living one way or another. So a lot of the stuff is discounted because it's not that it doesn't tick off all of our boxes. Because again, we're very discerning, but we're very welcoming. So I think one of our famous quotes is, we believe in this ecosystem, so we'll give everyone a hug, but not our money.
The music industry is a very special industry. And so how is investing in this industry different from investing into other industries?
It's completely different because the music industry specifically has its own bells and whistles, parameters, the way of doing business, the cadence of business, the complexities around IP. I mean, it's very, very specific.
And time frames. It's not like flipping houses.
Correct. So and entertainment is a very insular community. You don't just call up the call up someone and say, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to jump in the entertainment space. It doesn't work like that. You have to be trusted. I don't come from the music industry, but I had the opportunity to work in the industry because of the reputation of John and Rich Houghton, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't even had a chance. So I lucked out. But at the end of the day, you have to be coming from a position where you're trusted. You have to be coming from a position where you understand the music industry. I'm not an expert on copyright and publishing, but man, I've done a lot of reading and I know enough to be dangerous. So you need to understand the various facets of the industry before you can even think about being a savvy investor in the space.
Do you think there's more risk involved?
I believe so. What Rishi just mentioned, IP in the music industry is one of the most convoluted and confusing of almost any industry, because already the IP, I use the example, it's like a coin. There's two sides of the coin, and then each coin has slices of it, and it's also it's not consistent. Each country has its own sort of rules with regards to publishing. So it just made music the most difficult industry to move forward through the internet, for example. Music hit the wall. In fact, music hit the wall so hard that because it was so convoluted, it went all the way down to zero. The value of music was zero. And foolish people like us wanted to stay in the business, so I started tracking those little pennies here and there. We need to make money for the industry or we're all going to die, outside of partying, of course, right? So that was sort of the genesis of Beatport. Napster ain't working, and selling records is really difficult. Let's bring the whole community together. And I, with great pride, when you look back, we created more per unit royalty than ever before. I'll beat my chest a little bit in that, streaming doesn't work for independent people. It's clear. Even before it happened, I don't want to stream. I may not have 1 million fans. We're an underground bunch of people. But when you sold 10,000 downloads at Beatport, and Beatport took 40% on a $250, sale, that's $1 to Beatport and $1.50 to the artist. Wouldn't any artist dream of getting $1.50? I.e., support your independent sources, whether it's a Beatport or a Track Source, wherever you're buying, so Bandcamp. Per unit royalties for underground people are really important. So, walk the talk, and talk the talk, walk it. Do it, support it. So we need to support and create that value. So, that's how we think, and that's how we still think. So I went on a bit of a tangent there, but I think it's important for where we are right now, speaking as to viability. Be realistic. If I can only have 10,000 fans or 1,000 fans, right, there's a lot of people starting to get it. But that's sort of the real fundamental, tenets of us moving forward into the internet age.
And just to jump off of that, and John's spot on with his comments, we were at a very interesting inflection point in music. We're talking a lot about Web3. We're talking a lot about how artists can directly engage with their communities and their fan bases using Web3, using NFTs, using various facets of technology. Really, the key tenets there are content, community, and monetization, right? And we talk about what we saw in Web 1.0 and 2.0 about your core, 10,000 fans or 1,000 fans. Well, that applies more than ever in this new paradigm. So it's a very interesting time for us to be in this entertainment industry, and especially how we understand technology will unfold to create new opportunities, but of course new challenges as well on the same side, right? How do we manage IP rights in the metaverse, right? It opens up an entire new rat's nest of issues to deal with. So it's a very interesting time, and these inflection points are what create new opportunities for startups.
Definitely, and I think perhaps the most exciting part about the creator economy in the metaverse is the fact that you don't need 1 million fans. Even if you have 100 fans or 1,000 fans, you can unlock so much value from every single one of those fans, and you can really 10x what the money can be versus what it would be had you had 100 or 1,000 fans coming from streaming. And so what guidance would you give to budding artist investors who also want to diversify their performance fees and build a portfolio investment of their own?
Well, again, we don't manage people's money, but you kind of take that approach, right? An investment advisor. First of all, simple steps. As you start to make money, make sure you understand all the slices that are coming out of it, be it your management fee, a lot for taxation. We do get a lot of calls from people going, I need a tax advisor because someone's knocking on my door. Once you got your house in order, your affairs in order, then, you should, I tell people, buy a house. That may not be the thing, but you take steps. Get your business in order. Get your family life in order. If you got a family, think that maybe you should save some money for your kids. I had kids. I started, making sure I minimized my tax so I could put them through a good school, bought a house. In this day and age, you've got to have your personal priorities, and then you can start to invest. So one of the things that we suggest to a lot of independents, as Rishi alluded to, because when I met Rishi, he's like, well, why doesn't the whole music industry invest in itself? Well, like a lot of small business people, you may not have that balanced portfolio that, let's say you work for the government or something and you get your money and you're going to buy a bunch of stocks and bonds. Well, because we're independent people, we started thinking, well, it makes sense for us, with our fund, let's bring friends and family together and invest in our industry. So we're unique people, and I tend to be overexposed to music because, I've got a lot of my eggs in the music basket. So if you're a lifer in the music business or in any business, you probably should have assets investing in what you do best. Most people who don't make money should not be investing in music. Although those of us who make money, it makes sense that we get our affairs in order and invest in music. And that's sort of again, the evolution of who I was, who Rich Haughton was, Rishi coming to the table going, hey, let's live in a broader world. Like, music is like a really cool but, very specialized world. And let's and we realize that music is the fabric, one of the important fabrics in our society. So our job was to make music better integrate into society, i.e. finding the value proposition. So, but I would say invest in what you do best. So music people should invest, or entrepreneurs should invest what they know. Otherwise, don't risk your money. Then take money off the table and then put into some conservative stocks and stuff. But that's sort of the trajectory of investment, speaking from my own personal evolution, of course.
Mm-hmm. And also applying sort of some macro understanding of where music is going. One of the core tenets around our thesis many years ago is convergence. We saw music converging with gaming in a big way. DJ Marshmello and Travis Scott being inserted into Fortnite was no surprise to us. We saw that coming a million miles away, and it was just a natural evolution of where music is going, because music is in this new paradigm going to be much more than music. It will have touch points into gaming, AI, health and wellness, etc. So it's again a very, very interesting time to understand where music's been, where it is today, and how it's going to unfold and evolve into the future.
Yeah, the relationship of music and the metaverse and the whole consumption experience is a fascinating discussion, and it's a fascinating time to be part of that change and sort of see the different relationships that the newer generations will have as well with the digital world and the way that they fundamentally consume music. And so last question before we wrap up is, what are some of the misconceptions behind the work that you do? And I'm sure there's probably quite a few, but perhaps give me the biggest one.
Some of the misconceptions is I don't think our community exactly knows what we do in detail. I run into a lot of folks. So what artists do you manage? Or what new records is your group putting out? Are you guys throwing any parties anytime soon? And I just sort of my eyes gloss over and it's like, well, it's not exactly our business, but happy to get a coffee with you and explain it to you if you're interested. Yeah,
even with all due respect, and I love the ADE, I had to tick other. I did not apply. They didn't really have investors. There's and that's certainly the core of what we do at Plus 8 Equity. Now, I've got a different history, so I kind of put investor, artist, but I had to tick the other box. So. But I think that's because a lot of people have their own components. So whatever you are, whether you're a manager or an artist or a promoter, you then manage your money from there. So it's still a very sort of, distinct business proposition and setup here with all the entrepreneurs.
So many interesting nuggets from both of you guys. Thank you so much for your time and have an amazing ADE.
Thanks for having us, and to you as well.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed having these conversations. If you want to grab a copy of today's show notes, then head over to missionmakers.com/ADE, where you'll also find notes from all of our previous episodes. And if you're interested in talking to me about future opportunities at ADE, producing podcasts, or coming down to some of my music and motorsports events, then you can reach out to me at Mission Makers or at dj.n1nja on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you as ever for listening. Until next time, keep it laser focused.